Thank you very much for coming to join us for this session. As it says here on the screen, my name is Greg. I am the Chief Commercial Officer at Hubert. I am an AI optimist. What do I mean by that? I am really positive about the impact that AI can have and is already having on humans in the workplace. So I hope some of my optimism will rub off on you today and leave you feeling super cheerful about this. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about what is conversational AI, more importantly, how is it having a game-changing impact on hiring already, and who is Hubert. I'm not Hubert. We'll introduce you to Hubert as a real-world example of why I'm optimistic about what this technology can do for recruitment. Super quick introduction to Hubert. We are transforming high volume hiring by taking the science behind structured skills-based interviews into the world of conversational AI, ultimately to automate the application to shortlist process. That's what we do. And we call it predictive interviewing at scale. More importantly, as I said, I'm an optimist. My favorite fact about Hubert is that it's universally loved by both recruiters and candidates for a reason that I hope to show you. They both see the transformational benefits of this, not just the recruiters. Hopefully that will become clear as I go through this. So it's a real example of what I'm talking about in terms of positivity, a positive use of AI. So why do we choose to talk about this subject? Well, almost every agency that I've spoken to recently seems to be in the process of reviewing their tech stack, trying to decide what is the right set of tools for the future of their business. Companies are looking at how they can use AI to either improve efficiencies and protect margins, or to improve candidate experience or differentiate with new innovations. Hopefully that resonates with some of you here. But we often hear there is still a lot of confusion about the use cases. Confusion about the different applications for AI in talent acquisition, and then more importantly, perhaps which ones to prioritize. So even if you're starting to understand the applications, which ones should I prioritize? And then back to the title, where is conversational AI coming in? Like which of those applications really lend themselves to conversational AI? And also I hear the word chatbot a lot. So when we talk about conversational AI, I hear about the word chatbot. Are those two things the same? And I'll give you my thoughts on that in a few slides time. So what I hope I can do in the next 25 minutes is this. I'm going to try and demystify the overarching AI landscape. I've got something to show you over here. Help you navigate a little bit. I'm going to clarify what conversational AI is and its specific use cases, as I see it, at least in talent acquisition. I hope to inspire you by introducing you to Hubert, as I said, a real-world example, and reassure you that AI is genuinely here as a force for good to empower humans, not replace them. Ultimately, I'm also going to try and provide you with practical tips as I go through this, just a few practical tips to help you as you're prioritizing what you might apply in your organizations. And for me, this is where it all starts. Hopefully you can see this. Quite rightly, companies are reviewing their AI strategies right now, but all too often, I think it can lead, hopefully this sort of may resonate with some people if you can see it. I think this all too often, we end up in this situation again. And the point that I'm trying to illustrate here is that people are still falling into the classic trap, I think, with AI of treating it as a solution, looking for a problem, when of course it should always be the other way around, as we know. We know this. And so that brings me straight into takeaway number one, which is a simple reminder as you're starting to think about use cases for AI in talent acquisition and recruitment, to just do what you've always done. I know this is very simple, but do what you've always done in these situations. Start by properly understanding the problems that you want to solve, the opportunities, not just problems, opportunities that you want to unlock in your business, and then what should you prioritize? So which of those are the priorities? Which ones are going to move the needle the most, rather than trying to do everything before you start looking at the solution? that will make it much easier to make informed decisions. I know this is really simple stuff, but from our side here on Hubert, we do see that this is starting to happen again. People are focusing on the solution ahead of the problem. However, look, we know it can be difficult to prioritize when, as I said, there are so many potential use cases for AI. And at Hubert, we are in a really fortunate position to be talking to many of the staffing and recruitment companies. And that means we get to hear all of the common themes back from our customers in terms of the things that people are looking at and prioritizing. So with that, we decided to try to help a little bit, and we thought we'd have a go at creating this. Hopefully this sheet will come down. The first ever, we think, talent acquisition periodic table for AI. Thank you to Philippa for unveiling there. Look, the intention here, feel free to take pictures. You can download it at the end as well. The intention here is to give you a framework to help you navigate some of the most common use cases for AI in talent acquisition, and we've put them into neat little categories. It's not perfect, but we've done our best. Massive caveat, this is version 1, and just like the real periodic table of elements, we expect this to evolve. We want to crowdsource feedback, so we'd like you to get involved and tell us what you think. And of course, new use cases are going to continue to emerge, which is why we've left space at the bottom. So yeah, come and see us on our stand later, download this, take pictures, but hopefully this is a little bit of fun and helpful to you. But look, what I think this shows is the point I was making earlier, which is that there are a lot of legitimate use cases for AI in our world. But depending on your business, some of these, we feel some of these may be a little bit more of a nice to have. And by that, what I mean is things that will have certainly an incremental benefit to candidate experience, for example, or employee branding, but are they necessarily solving a major problem and going to move the needle for you? Whereas there may be other use cases that are solving much more fundamental and significant problems in your organization that can have much more of a game-changing impact. So again, I'm kind of talking about prioritization here, really. But it's many of those more game-changing opportunities that I think lend themselves particularly well to conversational AI. Which brings me to takeaway number 2, which is that conversational AI is not one thing. It can be used for multiple to solve multiple different problems. Again, I know this is probably a little bit obvious, but it can be forgotten. People tend to think about it as one thing. And so here are, again, going back to the periodic table, here are some of those most common use cases for conversational AI. And they broadly fall into these 4 buckets. So we put them into matching, things like enhancing your job search on your careers page, screening, interviewing and assessments, orchestration, so orchestrating the candidate through the journey, and communication, which sort of goes with orchestration, communicating better with the candidate as they go through their application journey. So it's not exhaustive, but they're the main use cases that we see. And again, I would argue that some of these use cases are going to be more valuable or solve bigger problems for your organization than others. So I would again remind you, as you're thinking about the application of this technology, think about what is the problem you're trying to solve, and what's going to move the needle the most. So, for example, personal view, having a chatbot that helps you do candidate search, I would put into that bucket of more of a nice to have. Is that a problem for the candidates? Right now, it's definitely a nice use, but is it going to solve an enormous problem? How hard is that for the candidates to do now? Whereas, comparing that with other sort of higher value, more genuinely transformational use cases, will give you higher returns, such as being able to fully automate the screening and shortlisting processes with more sophisticated solutions. A little bit biased here, but things like predictive interviewing we think is a very high value use case, or scheduling and better automating, communicating and orchestrating the candidate through the process, scheduling tasks, doing the work that currently is taking up a lot of time for recruitment assistants. Another really high value area, we think. All right, so it's not one thing. Think about the value and then use that to prioritize. Ideally, we can do all of these things, but we can't do everything at once. So you're probably already getting some idea of where we focus a lot of our energy at Hubert. We tend to try to focus on the high value areas first, which brings me on to, okay, so what is conversational AI? As I said at the start, I was going to unveil this for you. And is it basically the same as a chatbot? So for me, takeaway number 3 is no, it isn't. Personal view. I know those two things are interchanged a lot, but that's my personal view. And that's because in the past, when we think about chatbots, this is the image it conjures up. Early chatbots, chatbot 1.0, was certainly not intelligent. They sucked, right? I think we've all had a bad experience from chatbot 1.0. They're not intelligent. They're not interactive. They're keyword searching. What they're doing is they're keyword matching, which means that they will often fail. It's a fit or fail model, and that often leads to a failure. And in turn, that means you get a bad candidate or customer experience. So this is kind of chatbot 1.0. We've all been through it. That is really, really different to where we are now with conversational AI. We've all experienced conversational AI now, so this should come naturally. But conversational AI is understanding and responding to humans using natural language, right? So it's using this combination of NLU, natural language understanding, and NLG, which is natural language generation. That is conversational AI. It can interpret human variants. So it understands, like humans don't communicate in the same way. We're all different. It can understand the different ways that we communicate, and it can understand and recognize the intention in what we're saying. It's not just keywords. It understands the intentions behind what we're saying. And really importantly, it can engage in a two-way conversation. So if it needs more clarity, it can follow up and ask clarifying questions. So completely different to the chatbot 1.0. So happy for people to call it a chatbot, but only if we really understand the difference between chatbot 1.0 and where we are now. And as a result, of course, the experience now for customers or for candidates is a world apart from where we were before. However, as amazing as that is, conversational AI, if I have to define it in very, very simple terms, it's actually quite simple. It's just technology that helps humans to engage with machines in a more natural way. That's it. It's pretty simple. And that leads me to takeaway number 4, which is this conversational AI. This is how I think about conversational AI. I think about it just as an interface. And actually what matters isn't the conversational capabilities as such. It's more about what is the rest of the application doing that it's attached to. All right. So it's an interface, but what is the rest of the application doing to derive value, and what problem is it trying to solve? And to bring that to life and to try to illustrate that, I'm now going to do as I promised, and I'm going to introduce you to Hubert, and hopefully this will make some sense. Now, taking my own advice before I introduce you to Hubert quickly, I'm going to talk about the problem that we solve. And so let's start with the problem. And if this resonates, you recognize this, please nod along so that I know. We believe 2 big things are happening in the recruitment world right now. First of all, application volumes are increasing. In some areas, they've been high for a long time, but they're increasing. That's because candidates can now frictionlessly apply for as many roles as they like. Candidates are applying for more roles than ever before. And yeah, so that's kind of trend number 1. At the same time, what we're seeing is it's getting harder and harder to differentiate talent. So I would argue that it's always been, it's never necessarily been a good way to differentiate talent using CVs, application forms. It's not necessarily the best way to predict someone's future fit for a role. But now with candidates starting to use Gen AI to perfect their applications, this sort of thing, we're seeing a homogenization. We're going to see more of a homogenization. So you couple these 2 things together, rising application volumes and it being harder to differentiate talent, we are predicting, and we're seeing already, an exponential emerging problem for recruiters. So that's the problem that we solve. As I say, we already knew that that the existing screening and shortlisting processes are broken. Certainly, they're not fit for that emerging challenge that we now see. CV and telephone screening is very labor intensive. It's very costly. It's very slow. And of course, importantly, you don't always get the right data to be able to predict someone's future fit for a role. And the impact on that could be overstretched resources. Recruiters are probably drowning in CVs and applications. You may be missing the best talent because you're too slow to hire, you're too slow going through all those applications, or you're not going through them at all. It could be a poor candidate experience as a result of this. And of course, with overstretched resources, that also increases the risk of unconscious bias creeping in as well. So these are the problems we see. We believe the solution is this. It's structured, skills-based interviews to better predict candidates' potential to be successful in the future. And so, welcome to Hubert and the dawn of, as I said earlier, what we call AI predictive interviewing, AI-powered predictive interviewing. So Hubert is your always-on recruitment assistant. He combines structured, role-based, skill-based interviews with conversational AI. So that's what I mean about conversational AI being the interface, and then we do this structured interviewing and scoring. And we combine that to automate screening and shortlisting, and also, though, importantly, to just completely transform candidate experience at the same time, as I touched on at the start. We're a pioneer, or Hubert's a pioneer. We've been doing this for over 5 years, building these models. We have fine-tuned these models now on over 10 million different data points, 10 million different interview responses, because we work with some very large customers. And as I said, we're already delivering some pretty game-changing results for our customers. How it works is really simple. So the recruiter in their ATS system will simply add the Hubert interview when they want to. They'll pick the interview template from their list of templates that we would have built for them, and they'll apply it. Once they've done that, the candidate then simply clicks the Apply Now button and is taken straight into the Hubert interview, which looks like this. So this is what the candidate sees. It is a very short 8 to 12 minute interview. Hubert gives you a quick introduction into what to expect, and then he starts with some basic hard requirement questions, because we need to do those. But then it's after that that the magic then starts to happen, and that's when the candidate is asked open-ended questions about these things, so about their experience, their skills, their motivations, and their behaviors. And importantly, as I was alluding to, if the candidate doesn't give enough information, Hubert will probe the candidate for a little bit more information, giving the candidate a better opportunity to represent themselves. Hubert scores the candidates. So then the really clever thing also then happens. Hubert then scores candidates in real time using over 100 machine learning algorithms that we've built, which are built around well-established recruitment methodologies that have been around for a long time, like STAR, situation, task, action, result. This is how we're measuring the responses that candidates are giving. And then importantly, really importantly, the candidate gets feedback every single time on their performance. So no more ghosting, they always get feedback. And then this is what the recruiter sees. The recruiter gets a summary of all of the candidates ranked in order of their score, with a complete breakdown of their answers. So it is totally transparent, it's explainable, there is no black box, it's consistent, which is really, really important. And those scores are then passed back into your ATS system, where you can fully automate the next step. You can fully automate a human interview for those that have maybe been shortlisted, or you can have your recruiters intervene if that's what you want to do. And Hubert can recommend other roles, actually, so that Hubert can then proactively upsell other roles to that candidate, which could have an enormous impact on your conversion rates and your time to hire. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what we do. I did say conversational AI is just the interface. So this is kind of what the point I'm building to. When you're thinking about using these tools, this is what I'm talking about. Conversational AI is just the interface. It is how candidates can engage with Hubert in a human-like way. So it is important, and it allows us to probe the candidate for more information, just like a human recruiter or human interviewer would do. But it isn't the most important part of our technology. Our by far the biggest and most important part of what we do is what I've just described, the assessment engine. And that's where candidates are scored for their suitability for the role, and it's where the kind of magic happens that I mentioned. And then down at the bottom here, we also have what we call our engagement layer. That's our UIs, our APIs, and it's where we have integrations to over 30 ATS systems already, not least Bullhorn, who are obviously here as well, one of our best partners. And we do that because it's really important that we want the recruiters to run everything natively from their ATS. That's when recruiters get the most value out of Hubert. And this is just a glimpse into what sits inside that assessment engine. As I said earlier, we've got 100 machine learning algorithms to do the scoring using methodologies that have been around for a long time. Also, we've trained that on a ton of data. Data is really, really important when you're fine-tuning models, and we've got access to unique data to do that. I've been doing it for quite a while now. And it's also almost entirely our own technology. This is not a layer on top of OpenAI. 98% of our tech is our own, and we're only calling third-party large language models to help us in some of the responses that we give to candidates, some of the language responses. So as I said earlier, it's not a black box. It's very explainable, and it's completely configurable as well for customers. So this is what makes Hubert unique. Who do we do it for? We do it for some of the biggest staffing and recruitment companies already. Manpower and Randstad are two of our biggest customers, where we've helped them, and then lots of enterprises. We work with some medium-sized and very large enterprises, anyone with a high volume problem. And we're helping them take out 85% of their screening cost, 80% faster time to hire, and giving them better quality, because the data that we can get from our interviews is oftentimes better than you would get from an application form. And we're saving customers millions. As you can probably now start to imagine, shrinking that top of the funnel is saving our customers millions. Some recruiters have even called it a lifesaver. But by far my favorite fact of all, as I start to wrap up, is this, which is who's the most important person in all of this? It's the candidate, it's not the recruiter. Candidates love Hubert because it is fast, it's engaging, it's fair. We get a 96% completion rate. Everybody is treated equally. Hubert doesn't care what time of day or night it is, doesn't care if you're the 500th application. Everyone goes through the same process, and the candidate gets a better opportunity to represent themselves. And they're not ghosted, they get feedback. So candidates, we ask every candidate to give us a rating, and we average 9 out of 10. And we've done a lot of this now. But I don't just want you to take my word for it. If I've got time, I'm going to show you, I've got 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to show you candidates telling you, 1 minute of candidates telling you in their own words.
It was weird. I was like, what's this? This is something new. I was like, it's kind of interesting.
It did surprise me with how straightforward it was and how smooth it felt.
It was very user-friendly as well. It was very simple to use, so nothing that needed rocket science.
It definitely made me think it was a more modern, up-to-date company that I was applying for a job with.
It's like you're talking to a real person because you're getting a response.
You could type in as much as you wanted, and there was also no time pressure.
It makes you want to go into it more.
With Hubert, I felt like there was an interaction. It actually felt like there was someone at the other side. So that's something I actually enjoyed. It was very encouraging and positive.
It picked up my application straight away. It was a much more personal interview, and it resulted in me getting a job.
It was extremely fast. It was all within 2 days. So I was like, wow, that's what I call recruiting.
So there you go. Wow, that's what I call recruiting. We didn't pay her to say that. Great note to end on. This is why I am an AI optimist, that kind of feedback. So yeah, summary of the sort of key takeaways. As I said at the start, I know it's obvious, but try and focus on the problems that you're trying to solve before you think about the solution. Conversational AI isn't one thing. It can be used for lots of different use cases. Certainly moved on from the chatbots that we used to know. And it is just an interface. So whether it's Hubert or anything else, as you start to think about the technology that you want to use, don't think about the conversational AI. Think about what is it specifically that you're actually trying to do with it. Really, really basic stuff. And then I've added a bonus one at the bottom here. There's no time like the present. Play with it. Like, this is my sort of actionable what to do next. Play with it, test and learn, find ways to run proof of concepts. Things are moving at 100 miles an hour. It's never going to be a right time. So I would argue the time is now to start testing and learning and seeing what works. And don't just take my word for that either. I'm sure you all know this guy, Sam Altman. He says this: today's models are the stupidest they'll ever be. The development of this technology is not going to slow down for another 5 or 10 years. So don't delay. There's no time like the present. Have a test, have a play, and learn would be my sort of key takeaway at the end here. And that's it. That's it from me. Thank you for listening. I don't know if we've got time for questions. You can scan this to download a demo to get this whole presentation. You can also download our periodic table. We'd love your feedback. If you like it, we'd love your feedback on this. Send it social. And we've got a trip. We're doing a prize draw for a trip to Stockholm as well, if you'd like to enter that. I hope that was useful. I hope that was interesting. Thank you.